The millionaire and the black homeless man. Julia felt like a ghost most days at Bennett and Sharp, the towering glass fortress where power played dress-up and loyalty had a price tag. She was the assistant, hard-working, invisible, a whisper lost in the chaos of office whispers filled with jealousy and cold stares. But something odd had happened just this morning. Right there on the shiny marble steps of the building, under the brutal city sun and the swirl of taxi horns, stood Vincent Drake, the CEO everyone feared and barely dared to breathe near. He shared space with a man nobody expected to see here. A tall, black homeless guy, ragged and dirty, clutching a battered leather case that seemed out of place. The scene was like a cracked mirror, reflecting some secret story. Vincent, in his sharp suit that gleamed like cold steel, didn't shout or wave off the man. Instead, his sharp blue eyes flicked between Julia and that unexpected companion. The homeless man's face was calm, almost. Why her? The woman who hid behind stacks of papers and ignored nods? Vincent clearly thought she'd be harmless, a shadow in the background. But something inside Julia shivered with a fierce light. Maybe this was her shot, a chance to flip the script, to stop blending into gray walls and cold coffee moments. Enter Raphael, her IT guy and office puzzle. He was leaning against the server room door, like a rebel without a cause, headphones dangling, eyes sharp beneath messy hair. He had his own fire, a war with Rebecca, the sharp-tongued, ambitious woman who ruled office politics like a queen bee. Word was Rebecca was already stirring, jealousy gnawing at her as soon as the party invite became talk. She whispered poison, plotting to tear Julia down before she even showed up. But Julia and Raphael, sparked by equal parts desperation and hope, crafted a plan. New look, new swagger, a transformation so clear it would cut through the dullness like a knife. The office buzzed with tension, quick glances, whispers like static electricity. That night, the party exploded under chandeliers that burnt the ceiling with golden light. Music thumped like a heartbeat gone wild. Julia, glowing and fierce, became the unexpected center of attention. Eyes locked, jaws dropped. Vincent noticed. Everyone noticed. But Rebecca's venom didn't stop. Her lies spun faster. Dangerous. Dark. Then Julia found it. Files hidden in Vincent's locked computer. Evidence that Rebecca was not just jealous, but a manipulator crossing deadly lines. A chain reaction was coming, and Julia's hands trembled holding the truth. Would she burn it all down with revenge, or hold on tight to her fading integrity? And when Vincent appeared again, just like that, in the shadowed corner of the corporate arena, their eyes met. A silent game began, fierce and unpredictable. The stakes? Everything. What would Julia choose? Revenge or rescue? And how deep did the real danger run? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like That helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact! The conversation hung heavy in the air between Julia and Vincent. Her heart raced. Her palms felt clammy as she held that damning file. This was it. The moment that could change everything. Tension wrapped around them like a thick mist. They stood inches apart, the crowd swirling around them, voices muffled, lights dimmed. But before the fire could ignite, fate had a cruel twist waiting in the shadows. A loud crash shattered the music, silencing the dance floor. People turned, shocked faces blinking in confusion. A waiter stumbled, tray flipping in slow motion, drinks splashing onto the marble floor like broken dreams. Then came the screams, high-pitched and panicked, slicing through the room. A figure staggered in, a man, wild-eyed and panting, bursting through the crowd with the desperate urgency of someone unraveling. "Help! Someone! Call an ambulance!" His voice cracked, a raw edge of fear. All eyes snapped to him. Julia's gut clenched. Something was wrong. He lunged forward, directly towards Vincent. The crowd parted, as if parting seas, but the shock didn't end there. "You need to listen. There's a—" Before he finished, Raphael appeared out of nowhere, pushing through throngs of stunned guests. His face was pale, eyes wide, a storm of emotions crashing behind his expression. "Vincent, Lidl's here. They say," his voice dropped to a whisper, laced with horror. The homeless man stepped closer, a flicker of recognition flashing in his eyes. And then it struck Julia. A freeze, a hazy memory slipping into focus. This was the same man Vincent had spoken with outside that morning. The stark contrast of their worlds suddenly twisted into something more sinister. "Him!" the homeless man shouted, pointing a finger trembling with urgency. "He's the one he's been—" "Shut up!" Vincent barked, his voice a storm that cracked through the tension. But the man pressed on, cornered yet fierce. "They're all in danger! There's money missing! He's been—" The words hung in the air, a dark cloud racing to engulf them all. Suddenly, the lights flickered, then plunged into darkness. Panic erupted, screams mingling with chaos. Bones lit up, but shadows moved. Julia's pulse raced. She gripped the file tightly, her safety net unraveling, sense of clarity fading. And then it happened. A gunshot rang out. The crack echoed painfully, a gunmetal reminder of fragility. Silence followed, a deep breath before the storm, holding everyone hostage in disbelief. Within that silence, Julia met Vincent's gaze. His mask of confidence crumbled, eyes widening in terror. The homeless man collapsed to the floor. Blood pooling beneath him, yet his eyes still burned with accusation. The air was thick with confusion and fear, an underground current that hinted at betrayal. Julia's mind whirled. Everything flipped on its head. All the pieces shifted. Vincent was not the untouchable CEO anymore. He was a man cornered, hunted. She had been swept into a game much darker than jealousy or ambition. The walls felt like they were closing in. Choices choked her, Trust evaporated around her. She remembered the whispers of office politics, Rebecca's cunning smile, the feeling of being watched. Who was the real predator? And who was the prey? As the crowd scrambled, frantically searching for exits, Vincent grabbed her arm with a grip that seared. "We need to go, now!" And just like that, a new game began. A deadly chase that could unravel everything. Would she follow him into this abyss? Or would she break free and seek her own truth? Dark shadows lurked, and survival was no longer guaranteed. The night had only just begun. Vincent's grip on Julia's arm was iron, dragging her toward the nearest exit, panic flashing in his eyes. "Hurry!" he urged, urgency slicing through the chaos. The party was spiraling into a nightmare. But Julia's mind was racing, struggling to process what just happened. The homeless man lay bleeding, his accusations hanging heavy. "Vincent, wait!" she shouted, her voice lost in the pandemonium. "We can't leave him!" "No time! Just trust me!" He pulled her into the wild stampede of bodies, the room thick with terror. The music had become a distant echo, replaced by a collective gasp as people screamed and pointed. Raphael was still there, eyes wide with disbelief. "What was he saying?" he asked, breathless. The crowd surged, pushing and pulling. "Vincent, what's going on?" Vincent shot him a look, something dark swirling behind his blue eyes. "There's no time, Raphael. We need to get out, now!" Julia's heart was thudding. Something was wrong. Everything felt wrong. She couldn't shake the feeling that Vincent held secrets as dangerous as the gunshot that rang out. Most were panicking, but the adrenaline slammed into her. It made her bold. He said, He said there was money missing. What does that mean? Vincent hesitated, and Julia caught a glimpse of something. Fear? Guilt? It was fleeting, but it ignited a fire of doubt in her. Why was he acting so frantic? She grabbed his shoulder, digging her heels in. "What are you hiding?" The lights flickered back to life, and there it was, a vision burning into her mind. She could see the homeless man's expression before it happened, eyes wide and accusing. If he had been speaking truth, how deep did Vincent's lies go? In that moment, the air crackled with an energy that felt heavier than the bodies around them. Then she saw it, a flash of movement at the corner of her eye. Not just anyone, but Rebecca, weaving through the scattered crowd like a viper. Waves of realization crashed into Julia. Rebecca had always loomed in her shadows, whispering. But now she wore a smirk, somehow aware that the tide was turning. "You think you can escape this, Vincent?" she called, her voice carrying over the noise. "Your little empire is crumbling." Julia's heart sank. This was a game, and she was caught in the middle. The urgency transformed into dread. "What do you know, Rebecca?" she shouted, but the words came out small, trembling. Rebecca's smirk widened. "You really should have stayed in the background, Julia. There's a whole world you don't see." She gestured to the chaos, the faces painted with shock and fear. "You think all this is for show? The money, the connections? It's about survival, and you've picked the wrong side." The crowd was still buzzing, trapped in the spectacle, but Julia was wide awake, as if she had plunged into icy water. She turned to Vincent, searching for answers, but he was looking at Rebecca now, hard and unreadable. Then came the twist, something that sliced through the tension like glass. Out of nowhere, a figure emerged, a familiar face, dressed for the party and yet utterly out of place. It was the homeless man, somehow up and standing again. Except he was clean, sharp, and not exactly what he seemed. This wasn't just any man. Julia recognized him now. It was a venture capitalist, rumored to have disappeared months ago. A loser of fortunes and reputation. "Surprise!" he sneered, dark amusement flashing in his eyes. "You thought you knew everything? That this was just an ordinary party? I've been playing you all like chess pieces." Julia's skin prickled. Was he the missing money? The thread came undone. Everyone deeper in their games. The man continued, voice booming above the crowd. "Welcome to the real party. Let's see who survives the night." Everything she thought crumbled. Her instincts screamed that nothing was what it seemed. Choices jutted out in front of her. Would they all pay the price when the truth came crashing down? The man stood there, a living contradiction. The crowd had shifted, whispers spiraling like smoke. Julia could barely breathe. This was the same man who had appeared vulnerable, beaten down by life. But now he exuded confidence, an unsettling smirk on his face. It made her skin crawl. "What's going on?" Vincent shouted, his voice rising above the crowd. But before anyone could answer, the lights flickered again, and panic surged like a wave. "Everyone quiet!" the man commanded, a sudden authority in his voice. "You're all part of a game much bigger than you can imagine." The crowd stilled, uncertainty palpable. Julia's stomach twisted. She glanced at Raphael, who looked as haunted as she felt. Everyone was staring. They were all caught in this web, and she didn't know how to untangle herself. "Let's be honest," the man continued, his eyes glinting in the flickering lights. "You think you've been figured out? You think Vincent plays his cards close to the chest? Wrong! It's you, Julia! You were the key!" A sickening tremor coursed through her. "What do you mean?" Her voice was barely a whisper, but everyone seemed to hang on their breaths. "You're naive if you thought you were just an assistant. You were meant to be the perfect pawn. Vincent needed someone who could dig deep without raising suspicion. And you did." The weight of his words crashed down on her, but she couldn't process it. "I didn't," he cut her off. "But you did. You found the files. You were meant to." Julia's heart raced. She thought of the truth she held, clutched in her hand like a loaded gun. "I don't want any part of this." Vincent tugged at her arm, but she shook him off. "Stay back!" she yelled, feeling raw and exposed. She couldn't just let this play out. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and in rushed the police, uniforms slicing through the dance of chaos. "Everyone, stay calm! Clear the area!" They fanned out, but Julia's eyes were glued to the homeless man. No, not homeless. A shark in disguise. He caught her gaze, smirk widening. "You think this is over? You have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes." Before she could respond, a loud clap echoed. One of the officers had raised their weapon, pointing it squarely at the man. "Get on the ground!" Chaos erupted. People screamed and scrambled for the exits. The party was now a stampede. Julia felt her heart thud hard. The man lunged forward, and in a blink, everything froze. A shot rang out, not from the cop's gun, but from the man, and in an instant, he pulled a weapon from his coat. The crowd gasped, horror swirling into disbelief. And then, right before her eyes, Vincent stepped forward to protect her. The world tilted, time slowed, and she watched him take the hit, pain flashing across his face like lightning. He stumbled, crashing to the ground. "Vincent!" she screamed, the word tearing from her throat. She rushed towards him, dread enveloping her. The man, who had been the embodiment of power, was now bleeding on the ground, eyes glistening with something she couldn't decipher. Fear? Regret? "Julia," he whispered, voice strained. "You have to run. Don't get caught up in this." But the urgent thrum of chaos was all around. Hysteria dragged her back. The man was still there, gun in hand, yelling over the din. "You're all in this now! No escape, not for any of you!" Julia's mind raced. Everything she thought she knew shattered to pieces. Who was the real villain? Was it Vincent? The man? Or even Rebecca? The truth felt like a tornado, spinning and tearing at her, but one thing was undeniable. She had to decide. Would she keep running, accept the darkness of this night, or step into the chaos and confront it head-on? As sirens wailed closer, she felt the balance tipping, the decision pulsing in her veins. All she knew was that the night was far from over. The pieces had shifted, and she could either become the hero of her own story or the next pawn to fall. Julia's heart was pounding in her chest as chaos unfolded around her. Vincent was on the floor, blood pooling, and panic washed over her like a tidal wave. She crouched beside him, frantically pressing her hands against the wound, desperation clawing at her throat. "Stay with me, Vincent! Just hold on!" His gaze flickered, the light dimming in his blue eyes. "Get out, Julia." But she couldn't leave him. Not now, not when everything felt so wrong. "Help is coming!" she yelled to the crowd, but no one was listening. People shoved against each other, desperate to escape the nightmare. "Stay down!" Raphael shouted, gripping her shoulder as if willing her to rise and move. But she couldn't. Part of her needed to believe that Vincent would be okay, that maybe they could figure this out together. The air crackled with tension. Julia's thoughts raced back to the homeless man. No, the venture capitalist who had turned their world upside down. His twisted smile haunted her. Did he plan this? Was this all a part of his game? A sudden movement caught her eye. The man was still standing, a smug grin plastered across his face. "This is just the beginning," he shouted. "The truth is out. Secrets can't stay buried." Murmurs erupted from the crowd. What does he mean? Is he serious? Flickers of confusion rippled through the guests like an electric current. "Who are you?" Julia shot back, anger boiling within her. "What do you want?" He tilted his head, eyes glistening with mischief. "You think you're in control, don't you? But you're not. None of you are." And just like that, the energy in the room shifted. People were no longer just afraid. They were wary. The man's words sparked something, a tornado forming amidst the chaos. Secrets began bubbling beneath the surface as whispers grew louder. Then, amidst the panic, The lights flickered again, dimming once more. A chilling silence rolled over the crowd as everyone held their breath. "Enough of this!" the venture capitalist shouted, and as he raised his gun again, Julia realized she was standing between him and Vincent. Her instincts screamed at her. She couldn't let it end like this. Before a single shot could be fired, the police burst through the doors, powerful and demanding. "Drop the weapon!" they boomed. But the chaos was overwhelming. The man's laughter echoed in stark contrast to the authority of the officers. "You think they can save you?" he sneered, eyes flashing like a wolf sensing weakness. Then everything shifted again. The sound of a second gunshot rang out, louder this time. A ripple of horror swept through the room, and the venture capitalist staggered back, gripping his shoulder as blood sprayed across the walls. The crowd gasped in unison, shock paralyzing them as they processed the scene. Who shot him? Who was left capable of such violence in all this madness? Julia felt the world tilt as she turned to find Rebecca standing at the edge of the crowd, a smoking gun in her hand. "You were right, Vincent. This was never just a party," she shouted, her voice a sharp knife cutting through the confusion. As jaws dropped, Julia's mind reeled. Rebecca, the queen bee of manipulation and ambition, was the true puppet master? "Why?" Julia murmured, disoriented. "Because everyone thought I was just an office rival," Rebecca continued, a twisted smile curling her lips. "But I'm so much more than that." Julia's heart raced. If Rebecca had orchestrated this, how deep did her plans run? A new light flickered dimly in the darkness. If Rebecca was involved, then everything she thought she knew was a lie. Vincent's voice struggled to rise above the chaos, desperation lacing his words. "Get out of here, now!" But Julia couldn't move. She was trapped in a storm of betrayal and shocking revelations. Her world had flipped again, even as the sirens blared closer. The police were moving in to take control, but would anyone be saved? Who could be trusted in a game where everyone wore a mask? A knot twisted in her stomach, and the floor felt like it was about to give way. Choices pressed against her like a heavy weight. It was clear now. This night had revealed the truth, scarier than she could have ever imagined, and everything was about to change. Where did she fit in this treachery? Would she cling to what was left of her integrity, or become a player among the wolves? As sirens screamed and the chaos swirled, she knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The chaos surged around Julia. The sirens drew nearer, but her heart was racing for a different reason. As she knelt beside Vincent, blood soaking his crisp shirt, she could feel something inside her explode. A whirlwind of emotions, tearing at her focus. "Vincent, please," she begged, squeezing his hand. "Just hold on." His breathing was shallow, and pain creased his brow. "You," before he could finish, the man with the gun spun around, his eyes wild. "You think this is about you?" His voice boomed in the thickening air. "I'm just getting started. You think money makes you strong? It makes you a target." Julia's stomach churned. Fear knotted inside her. "Vincent is—" "Enough," the man bellowed, pointing his gun wildly at the crowd. Panic rippled through the guests, their shocked faces a sea of confusion. You all think you're clever, but I've seen the truth, and it's ugly. The lights flickered, cast shadows shifting like specters, creeping closer. Rebecca's laughter echoed, sharp against the rising tension. "What a show we have," she taunted, eyes gleaming with something dark and twisted. "Shut it, Rebecca," Vincent shouted, a fierce protectiveness brewing despite his pain. His voice wavered, but the fire behind it was unmistakable. "This isn't a game!" Suddenly, the homeless man, the venture capitalist, stepped into the chaos again, a smirk taunting everyone around him. "You're all puppets," he sneered, "and I'm the one holding the strings." "I'll kill you!" Vincent roared, his fierce resolve lighting like a flame. But just as the tension reached a boiling point, a tap echoed like thunder in the silence. Julia whirled around, her heart dropping. The police had entered, weapons raised, but amidst the confusion, it was the sound of glass breaking that sent chills racing down her spine. Someone had thrown a bottle, its shards glittering like stars against the dark backdrop. In that chaos, a shadow moved behind the venture capitalist, a ghost from the past. The figure rushed forward, revealing Anna, Julia's old friend, who had vanished after a scandal engulfed her life 2 years ago. The woman looked different, hardened, with eyes that reflected pain and survival. "Julia!" Anna gasped, her voice ragged, a knife of desperation cutting through the noise. "You're in danger!" "Anna?" Julia's voice broke, disbelief freezing her for a moment. "Get back!" Anna shouted, lunging toward the heedless venture capitalist. "They're all involved! This is a trap!" The words struck like lightning. Everything clicked into place. The web of lies, the treachery, the missing money. It wasn't Vincent or Rebecca at the center, but something deeper, darker, and more sinister. The man with the gun turned, surprise flashing across his face. You should have never come back." "Let go of the past," Anna shouted. "You don't know what you're unleashing." The room was frozen, breaths caught in throats, eyes darting between Anna and the man. Julia felt the world tilt again, reality spinning around her like a carousel out of control. The venture capitalist's laughter echoed, a sinister melody. "Unleashed? Oh, this is just getting good." "That's not all," Anna pressed, pulling something from her coat. "A flash drive. I have evidence." "Everything. The backdoor deals, the double-crossing." Before she could explain, a gunshot rang out again. The crowd screamed, chaos erupting once more. And then as quickly as it started, everything changed. The lights flickered, revealing shadows darting like lightning. Then she saw it, Vincent's eyes widening in horror, reflecting betrayal. The truth crashed over her like a tidal wave. "No, it can't be!" Julia gasped, the ground churning beneath her. Anna's gaze shifted from the venture capitalist to Vincent. Something shattered in her expression. "You're the target, Julia. You were never meant to survive this. This was always about you." Julia felt her heart drop into her stomach. "What? But why me?" The answer hung in the air, heavy with suspense. As the reality of the night spiraled into a darkness none of them could escape. The truth seemed just out of reach. But one thing was clear. Everything they thought they knew had cracked, and nothing would ever be the same again. The stakes had been raised. Choices loomed, sharp, unforgiving. The darkness beckoned, and the night, now probing for blood, had only just begun. The chaos surged around Julia. The tension was palpable, the fear thick enough to choke on. Anna's declaration echoed in her mind. You were never meant to survive this. It shook her to the core. The crowd buzzed, eyes flicking between the gunman and the bloody scene, uncertainty weaving dread into the air. Anna, what do you know? She pressed, her voice trembling. But Anna's eyes were locked onto the venture capitalist, the man with the gun, as if he held her life in his hands. He's been watching you, waiting for the right moment, she said, urgency spilling from her. And now you're at the epicenter of this madness. Julia's heart raced as pieces began to fall into place. But why me? What's my connection to all of this? Everything you know is a part of a bigger game, Anna declared, stepping forward. You're not just an assistant, Julia. You're a key player in this. He needs you to leverage the power you didn't even know you had. Suddenly, the venture capitalist sneered, raising his gun. You still don't get it, do you? His voice sliced through the tension with cold arrogance. You've been too busy being a pawn to see that you're the queen. And now it's checkmate. Julia's pulse thundered as she pieced together the madness. Before she could think, Vincent groaned against the floor, fighting through the haze of pain. Julia, don't listen to him. The truth is... But before he could finish, a deafening crash echoed through the room. A heavy door flying open. The officers had finally made their way through the chaos, guns drawn, shouts commanding order. Show me your hands. Julia flinched as the venture capitalist swung around, gun still raised. He was trapped. The room went silent for a breath, before erupting again. She spotted a sudden movement in her peripherals. Rebecca lunged forward, her eyes ablaze with fury. Enough! She screamed, and in a shocking moment, she drew a weapon of her own that Julia never saw coming. The tension was expedient, a heart-stopping split second. Julia's heart dropped as Rebecca pointed her gun at the venture capitalist, motioning him backward. You think you're the one controlling this game? Wrong. You've stepped into my territory. The room felt like it spun as reality shattered. The venture capitalist's smirk faded, replaced by fear. Rebecca, you've betrayed me. Betrayal? You're the one who set this whole thing in motion. Rebecca shouted, voice shaking with fury. I'll end this before it destroys me. The gunfire rang out, 2 shots in rapid succession. The crowd gasped, riveted, frozen in shock. Julia watched as the venture capitalist staggered backward, the force of the bullets pushing him further into the shadows. A breath caught in her throat. Had he been shot? But then, as if caught in a slow-motion dream, she saw something drop from his coat, a small, metallic object, reflecting the lights like a beacon. It clattered to the floor, and in that moment, everything spiraled out of control. Before anyone could react, the object revealed itself as a small device. A bomb. Red blinking lights flashing ominously. No! Julia screamed, her voice a desperate wail, as panic surged through the crowd. Everyone, get out! Vincent shouted, his voice tearing through the chaos. But it was too late. The world tilted. People rushed for the doors, screams echoing. The venture capitalist's face twisted into an exhilarated grin. You can't escape. This is your doing. You'll never get out. Julia felt the ground beneath her tremble as the first explosion erupted, a wave of heat and force crashing over her. Time slowed. The building shook. Relationships shattered like glass. In that moment, she realized the true depth of the web that ensnared them. Vincent, Anna, Rebecca, all pawns in a sinister game, but the stakes were higher than any of them could fathom. Julia felt the pressure squeeze her chest. Who could she trust in a world that turned upside down in seconds? She had to decide now. Would she flee or confront the truth head on? And as she stood there, surrounded by chaos, the reality of her role emerged. She wasn't just a player. She was central to the game. All eyes were on her. As the second explosion echoed in the distance, fire igniting in the walls, she knew this was only the beginning. The question lingered in the air like smoke. What would she do? What would become of her? The choices stretched impossibly before her, and she could almost taste the danger. The night was far from over. The chaos surged around Julia. The tension was palpable, the fear thick enough to choke on. Anna's declaration echoed in her mind. You were never meant to survive this. It shook her to the core. The crowd buzzed, eyes flicking between the gunman and the bloody scene, uncertainty weaving dread into the air. Anna, what do you know? She pressed, her voice trembling. But Anna's eyes were locked onto the venture capitalist, the man with the gun, as if he held her life in his hands. He's been watching you, waiting for the right moment, she said, urgency spilling from her. And now you're at the epicenter of this madness. Julia's heart raced as pieces began to fall into place. But why me? What's my connection to all of this? Everything you know is a part of a bigger game, Anna declared, stepping forward. You're not just an assistant, Julia. You're a key player in this. He needs you to leverage the power you didn't even know you had. Suddenly, the venture capitalist sneered, raising his gun. You still don't get it, do you? His voice boomed in the thickening air. You've been too busy being a pawn to see that you're the queen. And now, it's checkmate. Julia's pulse thundered as she pieced together the madness. Before she could think, Vincent groaned against the floor, fighting through the haze of pain. Julia, don't listen to him. The truth is... But before he could finish, a deafening crash echoed through the room, a heavy door flying open. The officers had finally made their way through the chaos, guns drawn, shouts commanding order. Show me your hands! Julia flinched as the venture capitalist swung around, gun still raised. He was trapped. The room went silent for a breath before erupting again. She spotted a sudden movement in her peripherals. Rebecca lunged forward, her eyes ablaze with fury. Enough! She screamed, and in a shocking moment, she drew a weapon of her own that Julia never saw coming. The tension was expedient, a heart-stopping split second. Julia's heart dropped as Rebecca pointed her gun at the venture capitalist, motioning him backward. You think you're the one controlling this game? Wrong. You've stepped into my territory. The room felt like it spun as reality shattered. The venture capitalist's smirk faded, replaced by fear. Rebecca, you've betrayed me! Betrayal? You're the one who set this whole thing in motion, Rebecca shouted, voice shaking with fury. I'll end this before it destroys me. The gunfire rang out, 2 shots in rapid succession. The crowd gasped, riveted, frozen in shock. Julia watched as the venture capitalist staggered backward, the force of the bullets pushing him further into the shadows. A breath caught in her throat. Had he been shot? But then, as if caught in a slow-motion dream, she saw something drop from his coat, a small, metallic object, reflecting the lights like a beacon. It clattered to the floor, and in that moment, everything spiraled out of control. Before anyone could react, the object revealed itself as a small device, a bomb, red blinking lights flashing ominously. "No!" Julia screamed, her voice a desperate wail as panic surged through the crowd. "Everyone get out!" Vincent shouted, his voice tearing through the chaos. But it was too late. The world tilted. People rushed for the doors, screams echoing. The venture capitalist's face twisted into an exhilarated grin. "You can't escape. This is your doing. You'll never get out." Julia felt the ground beneath her tremble as the first explosion erupted, a wave of heat and force crashing over her. Time slowed. The building shook. Relationships shattered like glass. In that moment, she realized the true depth of the web that ensnared them. Vincent, Anna, Rebecca, all pawns in a sinister game, but the stakes were higher than any of them could fathom. As the smoke began to billow, a silhouette emerged from the shadows. An unexpected figure. Julia squinted through the chaos, her heart pounding. It was the homeless man, the one who had started everything. But there was something different about him now. His clothes were crisp, his eyes sharp, radiating a power she hadn't seen before. "Do you all see it now?" he shouted, his voice booming over the screams. "This was always about you, Julia. Only you can stop this." Questions swirled in her mind like a storm. What was happening? Who was he really? And suddenly, a deeper truth hit her. He wasn't just some homeless man. He was a player in this twisted game all along. Julia's breath caught. The world spun around her, faces blurring. All her beliefs shattered, her trust hanging by a thread. He was the key, the puppet master, the one who had guided this madness. The second explosion roared, and with it, everything ignited. The walls trembled, crumbling like the lives they had led. "Choose, Julia!" the homeless man shouted again, a manic intensity glimmering in his eyes. "Will you join the darkness or fight against it?" This is just the beginning. The ground shook beneath her as she stared into the depth of betrayal and destruction, caught in a chaotic dance of choice and consequence. Her heart pounded. Her mind raced. What was her truth in a world turned upside down? The choice loomed before her like an open door to the abyss. And right then, Julia knew this nightmare was far from over. The chaos swirled around Julia like a storm, but she felt anchored to this moment. The homeless man, no, the venture capitalist, insisted she was the queen in this tangled game. "Choose, Julia," he shouted, as the room quaked from the aftermath of the explosions. His eyes sparkled with a manic intensity, demanding her attention. But just as she opened her mouth to respond, a deafening roar echoed through the room. A shadow emerged, bursting through the smoke, a silhouette of pure madness. It was Rex, the security chief of Bennett and Sharp. holding a radio in one hand. His face was lined with fury and determination, a hard edge that cut through the surprise. "Everyone get down," he bellowed, shoving past the startled guests. The crowd froze, the air thick with dread. Before anyone could react, he dove toward the venture capitalist, tackling him to the ground as another explosion rattled the walls. "Get away from her!" Rex shouted, pinning the man down, the gun flying from his hand like an errant child. The room erupted into screams once more, people scattering like leaves caught in a hurricane. Julia's head spun. Rex, once just a casual face in the company, now a fierce defender? She had no time to process this. Everything moved in slow motion. She looked at Vincent, bloodied and pale, gasping for air. Anna gripped her arm, wide-eyed, with a mix of fear and confusion. They all needed to move to escape this nightmare. But just as the police surged into the room, weapons drawn, Rex turned toward her. "You need to trust me, Julia. There are things you don't know." His words tumbled out with urgency and desperation. Things she didn't know? The ground beneath her felt unsteady. Suddenly, the venture capitalist laughed, a dark, booming sound that echoed through the chaos. "You think you've won, Rex? This was never about you, or even her. You're all just pawns." The panic in the air blossomed into something almost tangible. Harsh whispers rippled through the crowd, confusion, fear, and distrust. Julia grasped Anna's arm tighter, her pulse racing. What did he mean? And then, the most shocking twist of all, Rex pulled off his security badge, tossing it aside. "You're wrong. This was all orchestrated for a larger purpose." Julia's heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" Rex stepped forward, eyes fierce. "The company, the money, the chaos. It's about power, and you're at the center of it all. You're the key to it. You always have been." "What? No!" Shouting now, frustration mingled with confusion. "I'm just an assistant." "No, Julia." Rex's voice pierced through the chaos like a knife. "You're not just anything. You're everything. You're the daughter of the original founder, the one who was thought to be gone." Her breath caught in her throat, disbelief washing over her like ice water. "What?" The weight of his words slammed into her, an avalanche of reality. She could barely keep her feet beneath her. "Your father got tangled in this mess, and they made you disappear to cover it up, to protect their secrets." Julia felt suffocated. The world twisted. She remembered memories that weren't hers, faces that lingered in dreams. Who was she really? As the police surrounded them, chaos erupted again, pulling her back into the moment. The venture capitalist was scrambling to his feet, a glint of fury in his eyes. "You think I'll let you expose the truth? Never!" Rex lunged at him, but in those rapid moments, everything exploded into darkness. The lights flickered, and something shattered. A massive window burst open, allowing smoke and confusion to flood in. "Run!" Julia heard Rex scream, but she was frozen. Her world had cracked open, and in that instant, nothing was as it seemed. What would she do with this newfound truth? Who could she trust? The stakes had transformed, leaving her poised on the precipice of a much darker game. Fear and determination surged through her veins. The night had become a twisted nightmare, and Julia knew she was about to step deeper into a chaos that demanded answers, and a choice that would change everything. The dust from the explosions settled like a heavy blanket over the chaos of the room. Julia's heart thundered in her chest. The world felt like it was closing in, and she was caught in the eye of a storm. Rex had tackled the venture capitalist, but the chaos kept swirling. The sirens grew louder outside, piercing through her terrified thoughts. "Run!" Rex shouted again, urgency lacing his voice as he wrestled with the man on the ground. Julia didn't hesitate. Grabbing Anna's hand, she pulled her toward the exit. They dodged and weaved through the panicking crowd. Adrenaline pumping through her veins, tightly gripping her hand, Anna shouted, "Where's Vincent?" "He's on the floor," Julia cried back, glancing over her shoulder. Vincent was still down, blood oozing from his wound. "Julia!" His voice was a whisper, thick with pain, but determination shone through. "Go! You have to take Anna with you." "No, I can't just leave you." The deep sense of fear pooled in her gut. It felt impossible to leave him behind. "Trust me," he gasped, struggling to rise against the floor. "You're stronger than you know. You have a future. Don't let it end here." With tears pooling in her eyes, Julia felt the weight of his words. She nodded, though fear gripped her heart. "Let's move," Anna urged, pulling Julia closer to the exit as Rex struggled to subdue the venture capitalist. A few officers surged into the chaos, guns raised, ordering everyone to move. The tension built, every heartbeat echoing like a drum. The air crackled with uncertainty and desperation. Outside, the streets were flooded with lights and frantic voices. "Now!" Anna urged, pushing forward as the heavy door swung open. Once outside, they found the chaos of the city rushing at them, sirens wailing, crowds spilling onto the street from the building. Julia's mind was reeling. She couldn't shake the feeling that their lives had been irrevocably changed. Suddenly, Rex burst through the doorway, his shirt stained, breath ragged. "Get out of here! I don't know what else is about to happen." In that moment, Julia met Rex's eyes, a silent plea passing between them. The venture capitalist had unleashed a nightmare, but she felt a spark of hope amidst it all. Julia and Anna stepped away from the chaos, watching as the police tackled the man, detaining him. Then Rex's voice broke through the haze. "Julia, you might have to make a choice. If it all comes out—" "I know," she shouted, her heart racing. It felt like everything rested on this moment. Her past, her identity, everything. Suddenly, Vincent was outside, supported by 2 paramedics. He looked pale, but alive. Relief washed over her in waves. "You made it!" she gasped, rushing to his side. "Julia." His voice was hoarse, but his eyes held that fierce spark still. "Stay strong. We can fight this together." As the chaos continued, a flicker of determination ignited within her. For too long, she had been just a shadow. Now, she felt the weight of her choices, the power in her hands. The crowd continued to stir, filled with whispers of disbelief. The shattered night had birthed new realities. "No one is safe until we expose the truth," Julia declared, surprising even herself. "Not just for us, but for everyone." Anna nodded, her expression fierce. "We'll find a way, together. In that chaotic moment, they bonded through the debris of their shattered lives, a flicker of a plan forming. As the night turned darker, they were ready to fight for their truth. Together, they faced the uncertainty ahead. This was just the beginning. All right, everyone, this is the moment to show your support. You must subscribe now so you don't miss out on upcoming exclusive stories. You won't want to miss what comes next. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense finale. Don't wait 1 second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel with these actions. Be part of this journey.